People don't act like themselves. They act like the assumption of what other people expect. And that assumption is based on what they think other people think about them, which is based on the idea of what other people think. That's confusing? This should. At some point in this chain of thinking, myself assuming what someone else thinks that I should be and aligning myself to that, then the person who I am disappears entirely. And Law 3 is about finding that again in yourself and in everyone you meet. My name is Colin Charles, and I promise you I am Colin Charles. This is Enoch Marketing, and let's get into it. So, today we're talking about the mask defined. This is coming from chapter 3, law number 3, of Robert Greene's Laws of Human Nature. Everyone you meet is wearing a mask. That's not a metaphor, it's just a fact of life. The face that they show you is the face they think you want to see. It's curated, it's managed, it's performed, and here's the thing about that performance. It is not always dishonest in the criminal sense. Most people are not intending deception. What they're doing is much more subtle and nuanced. They are living out the assumption of what is expected. And they have done so for so long that many people have forgotten who they are without that assumption or without the mask. Greene calls this social mask, or calls it the social mask, the version of ourselves that we construct for public consumption. The mask is not inherently the problem. We all have one. The problem is when the mask becomes the person. When someone has worn it so long that they cannot take it off. And when the performance is the identity. And that is where we get duplicity. And duplicity meaning being two-faced. And it's not just a moral problem, it's a structural one. Integrity means being whole. One person, one face. And the moment you are split, you have lost your sense of strength and resolve in your own identity. And the seam between the two is often where we find ourselves. Greene writes that people are not always what they seem to be. In fact, they rarely are. The societal mask they wear is designed to impress, to seduce, or to intimidate, to project a self-image that suits their purposes. Of course, that's not innately deceptive. For example, if you had a doctor, and he uses this example, who may be a live-action role player or a rock musician, you don't want to see them come across as the rock musician when they are in the context of your doctor's appointment. You want them to come across as professional. That would just make sense. However, the problem arises when we don't allow ourselves to remove that mask to be who we truly are. Milton Erickson was an example from Robert Greene's book, The Laws of Human Nature. In the 20th century, he was a psychiatrist. He's widely known for being one of the greatest readers of human beings who had ever lived. And he didn't start that way. He developed it. When he was 17 years old, Erickson contracted polio. He was paralyzed, completely immobile for extended periods, and he could do nothing but lie in his bed and just watch the people around him. And think about what that forces you to do. You can't speak, you can't move, you can't participate. All you can do is observe. And he watched his family, their facial expressions, their body language, the gap between what they said and what their faces did while they were saying it. And he noticed things that people who are moving quickly through life simply don't have the time to see. Now, in the book, if you read it, it tells a story how he being able to regain his movement. So he eventually recovered. And he spent the rest of his life using that capacity to read people at a level of understanding that most human beings never get to. His point is that the skill of being able to read other people is completely learnable. And it requires you to slow down long enough to actually observe another person instead of just reacting. Most of us are moving too fast. We take the mask at face value because we don't have the time to look deeper. Erickson had no choice but to look deeper, and it changed everything about how he moved through the world. Greene writes, "Develop the habit of suspending the need to judge your people too quickly by allowing yourself to observe rather than to react, and you will see far more than most people ever do." So 3 things to read. Types of the things that we need to be looking for. First, note what people say. That is the content, the words they are using. And again, most people stop here because they're listening to an argument, not listening to the person making the argument. Second, notice how they say it. This is tone. It's the pace. It's the emotion underneath the words. And this is where the mask starts to slip, because tone is harder to control than content. Third, observe the body language while people are saying what they're saying. The micro expressions, the posture, the eyes, the gap between the face and the words. Roughly 7% of all communication is verbal. 30 to 35% is tonal, and the other 63% is body language. There's a gentleman named Paul Ekman, we mentioned him back in phase 1, who spent his career documenting microexpressions. By that, I'm referring to the involuntary facial movements that happen within fractions of a second before a managed expression arrives. That managed expression is the mask. It's the microexpression which is the truth. And you have to be able to slow down to see the difference. Now, shifting, I want to make this perfectly clear because the body is going to react emotionally. And that's good. That's how things function. Your body is going to have an experience that you may not be articulating through your words. Oftentimes, we rely on our rational thought and our, frontal cortex to be able to think of things that we can articulate. And those two exist in different parts of the body. Now, this is going to sound like I'm going to digress, but it is important to the story. So, I'm big on chakras. I know it's totally out of left field, but I love this concept of the chakras that exist in your body. So, the 7 chakras are the root chakra, the sacral chakra, the gut chakra, heart chakra, the throat chakra. You didn't see the first bunch. The third eye chakra and the crown chakra. Now, a way of looking at this, particularly because I grew up in the West and I don't know everything about it, is that if you notice, the heart chakra and the third eye chakra exist at positions 4 and 6. The throat chakra exists in position 5, between the two. Now, when I think about this, I'm getting back to my teleprompter. Now, in Eastern philosophy, specifically in this chakra system, we have all these energy systems. The 4th is the heart, the seat of emotion, and that is what naturally is expressed through the body. If we were to go back to the horse and the rider analogy we used in phase 1, the heart is the horse that the rider sits upon. It is powerful, it is emotional, and it has its own ambitions. The 6th, the seeing eye or mind chakra, is the seat of rationality. It's responsible for our logic and our language. That is the rider that sits upon the horse. And again, between the two is the 5th, the throat chakra, which is the seat of truth. Truth, therefore, lives between emotion and reason. Not above one, not below the other. It is between the two. And we cover this back with laws 1 and 2, and then we reiterated it with Kahneman, who showed us that the best decisions are not purely rational, nor are they purely emotional. They are between the emotions and the rationality. Systems 1 and 2 working together. The throat chakra says the same thing in a different language. The throat The truth is the voice that emerges when your heart and your mind are in alignment. And that is why it is not only the facts that need to line up, but the coherence of the stories that you are telling. Because that coherence of stories speaks to the emotional self, the heart chakra, and communicates truth. You want to know, your throat chakra will be blocked by lies. All three of these in alignment, all three of them clear. When someone is wearing a mask, performing as rather than being, they have disconnected their throat chakra, and when we see the three of them out of alignment, we can feel it. When your head is having a disagreement with your heart, we can feel it in your words. And they are all operating from the mind. When the heart is suppressed, the truth cannot come through. And we feel that absence. Western society has spent decades rewarding the mind chakra. We're a highly technocratic society. We're rewarded for knowing things and being able to clearly articulate and advance our arguments. We have systematically undervalued the heart chakra, the emotional intelligence, the emotional honesty, and the capacity to feel what is true rather than to just think it. However, we can all acknowledge that we are emotional creatures, and yet we still downplay our own emotion. And it is the person who operates both, who speaks from their throat chakra, with their heart and their mind in alignment, that comes across as the most trustworthy person in any room, because they are not performing, they're present. Now, getting into my own thoughts, that was my idea, but this is my thoughts. I'm going to give you another Air Force story. So far, we've only been in the same office, and this is for good reason, because it was the case study on human nature, and it will teach you to not like people. Forgive me. So, Law 1, we went over the ego decision that I made that got me into this position. All right, I had already made a plan to get out of the Air Force, and I decided not to go pursue the exec tour with this one guy. In Law 2, we talked about the environment. That was when we discussed, what narcissism looks like as it runs an institution. And my Blue Falcon buddy, who is the bender and the spreader. Then Law 3, we're going to take this. It's the same story, same place, given we were here for months. So you get to understand. And this is what happens when you refuse to wear the mask. Now, I've been very clear that the commander and I did not get along at all in any way, shape, or form. We didn't even have a chance to. It's not like he ever set expectations, but that's beside the point, though I asked on multiple occasions. My role in that position was to be the commander's right hand. My strength, in all its honesty, is connection. So I ended up being in the communication bridge between these 9 different offices, their commanders, their executive officers, all their different staffs. The other captain, Bindi Blue Falcon, was playing the political game. Again, he was much more of a performer. He played the role that our boss expected him to play, and oftentimes threw me under the bus to protect said mask. My boss wanted me to do the same. Kiss the ring, manage the image, fall in line. And I think that is the root of why we didn't get along. Because I'm not one to put on a mask. It's not something out of rebellion. Maybe I'm just too lazy to fake it, but I am committed to authenticity and my identity. And quite frankly, I love who I am. I have no shame in being exactly that person in every room I step into. And what happened across those 9 institutions was something I didn't actually fully anticipate at the time. And that's that people really stuck to me. And it wasn't because of my rank. It wasn't because of my title. And I think it was because they got the sense that I was going to be very real with them. So when you're not hiding something, when there's no gap between who you are and who you are performing, people can sense it. And they relax around you. They trust you faster. And they will go further for you. I genuinely believe that any of those people, to include the commanders, to all the execs, to everyone else, would have jumped off a bridge if I needed them to. Not because of the Air Force, but for me. And they would have known that I would have made sure that if they jumped, I would have been there to catch them safely. And that's what authenticity gives you. It's not just goodwill. It's genuine loyalty. And the contrast is visible. Now, the other guy, Bendit Blue Falcon, was the performer, and people were polite to him. They weren't loyal to him because there was nothing to be loyal to. When someone is performing, there's no person to attach to. You can't stick to a mask. There's nothing real to a person who has become the identity they have curated in that mask. Now, bringing this back to your gym, it's easy to put on a face to get people in the door, right? The energy, the enthusiasm, the promise of community and transformation, it is much harder to maintain that when things get hard. And it's CrossFit, right? It's gonna get hard. You're gonna have a brutal workout, your body's gonna be fatigued after training for weeks or months. You're gonna have injuries, it's gonna happen. There's going to be a member who's struggling and really needs something from you. And that moment is where the mask slips. And your members will feel it. And they might not be able to articulate it. They may not even know how you changed. They probably won't be able to articulate it. But something shifts. And that trust gets a hairline fracture. And that hairline fracture in trust compounds over time. And here's what most CrossFit gym owners don't understand about retention. Members do not leave because the programming got worse. They leave because the person they thought they signed up with turned out to be a performer. The CrossFit world is often run by people who are brilliant coaches. And quite frankly, and I mean this with love, maybe not the best trained in human resources. That's pretty much every entrepreneur, but they do what they need to do to get people in the door. And when pressure arrives, the real colors will come out. That gap between the face of the marketing, all the marketing you're doing, and the person who exists under pressure, that gap will kill your retention and your credibility. And the solution to that is not becoming a better marketer. It's not to watch all these videos. It's not even to sign up with us, though I would love you to do that. It is all about greater authenticity. Own who you are. And own who you are in every piece of the content you make, in every class that you coach, in every hard conversation you have with a struggling member. And the right people will find you. Because there will be nothing to find out later that contradicts what they found first. Be you. And that's what episode 7 of phase 1 was pointing out. If you recall, it was the niche within the niche. Own your corner completely. The gym that knows exactly who it is that they are trying to attract will bring in exactly the right person. A mask attracts whoever it is designed to attract. The real person underneath determines whether they will stay. Which brings me back to our good old friend, Poor Post Pete. Pete has been doing the work. His campaigns are running, his content is consistent, his metrics are improving, and it will improve over time. That's just part of the game. Pete, unfortunately, has started performing. Not maliciously. He just got so focused on building the right image, on being the expert, the authority, the guy who has it all figured out, that he started projecting confidence that he doesn't really feel. Now, to be clear about that, we're all going to have some form of imposter syndrome. That's fine. If you know your stuff, do your stuff. But don't fake who you are. His content sounds slightly more polished than his actual personality. His captions are more formal than the way that he talks to his members. And the distance between Pete and the content that Pete is pushing is growing. That gap is growing. and his members are starting to feel it. They can't name it yet, but the resonance is off. It's uncanny. Remember what we said about the throat chakra. Truth is the voice that emerges when the emotions and the mind are in alignment. Pete's marketing is coming from the mind only right now. It's calculated, it's management, it's strategic, but the heart has gone quiet. He thinks that I'm just trying to look like I know what I'm doing. Because isn't that what marketing is? Because you want to project like you know what you're doing, right? No. Yes, you want to know what you're doing, but you want to know it authentically. You don't want to act like you know. Faking it will not go anywhere. And I'll tell you from personal experience, oddly, if you are faking it, it doesn't matter where you're faking it from. It'll still look bad. Marketing is showing people that who you actually are, and clearly enough that the right ones recognize themselves in your message. And the moment you start performing, you'll stop attracting. You start deceiving. And deception always has an expiration date. The bill will come due. Now, in closing, let's recap. People don't act like themselves. They act like their assumption of what other people expect. At some point in that chain, the real person may disappear. Integrity means being whole. One person, one face. The moment you split and you slip into duplicity, you've weakened yourself. Milton Erickson learned to read masks because he had no choice but to observe. The skill is learnable, but it requires slowing down enough to actually see what's in front of you. People are wildly interesting. Jordan Peterson talks about that a lot. And they will tell you who you are if you let them. Truth and the throat chakra exists between the heart and the mind, right? The person who speaks from that place, it will be the most trustworthy person in the room. The heart is going to control what the body does. The mind is going to control what they say. You want to find coherency between the two. In our gym, your marketing and your coaching, and every hard moment, your mask will slip if you're wearing it. Determine the strength of people's character. How people behave under pressure is the only reliable data point that you have. Everything else is a mask. Subscribe, share this, drop your thoughts in the comments. Follow us at enochmarketing.com. Book a call if you're ready to build something real. And I'm Colin Charles. This is Enoch Marketing, and we'll talk soon.